House Bill 3546, relating to large energy use facilities, declaring an emergency.
Recognize Senator Sollman.
Mr. President, I rise in support of House Bill 3546B, the Power Act, a bill that addresses the critical issue of large energy use facilities and their impact on the state's energy infrastructure. I believe this bill is an important step forward towards ensuring that our electricity grid remains reliable, resilient, and cost-effective for all Oregonians. According to the datacentermap.com, the most recent count of data centers in Oregon is 131, which may lead some to ask, why are there so many data centers coming to Oregon? Oregon is extremely attractive to data centers because we check every box of their priorities to build out. Oregon being a top data center market confirms this. Because data centers required so much power 24/7, data center build-out relies on access to reliable and available power. The Northwest Plentiful Hydro System checks this box. Data center build-out also relies on access to crucial under-the-ocean fiber optic network hubs, which are needed to connect the work of these data centers across the world. These hubs touch land in Oregon. Other priorities are land availability and cool and mild climate. While costs are generally the land consideration for data center build-out, generous tax incentives definitely help Oregon's appeal. The numbers tell a very, very stark story. Over the past 5 years, data center growth on PGE's system alone has been equivalent to adding 406,000 people. That's nearly 4 times the population of the city of Hillsborough. While household energy bills have increased by 7.63 cents per kilowatt hour, large industrial customers in the same category as data centers have seen increases of only 2.8 cents per kilowatt hour. The 2024 PGE rates are 19.6 cents per kilowatt hour for residential. And industrial, which includes data centers, are 8.2 cents a kilowatt hour. Let me tell you that again. 19.6 cents per kilowatt for residential, 8.2 cents a kilowatt hour for industrial/data centers. That's PGE's 2024 rates. This disparity is unsustainable and unfair to Oregon families. House Bill 3546 directs the Public Utility Commission to establish a separate class of service for large energy use facilities, those that use 20 megawatts or more of electricity, including data centers and cryptocurrency operations. This measure not only shields households and small businesses from disproportionate costs, but creates a system where large energy users are held accountable for the infrastructure required to meet their needs, rather than passing those costs on to the general public. The bill requires accountability measures that make fiscal sense. Large energy users will sign contracts for at least 10 years to ensure expensive infrastructure investments are worthwhile. They'll pay a minimum amount of energy during periods of lower usage and pay additional fees when they exceed expected consumption, ensuring that excessive costs don't fall on Oregon households. During our committee hearing, a concern was raised about ensuring data centers retain their approved and contracted capacity. To address this directly, data centers, like all customers, are entitled to retain approved and contracted capacity, provided their financial commitments and payments agreed upon with the utility are satisfied. As my House colleague clarified for the record, without question, our intention would never be that, and the PUC would not allow any entity to pay for assets that they are not actually receiving. That's basic cost allocation practices at the PUC. That would just be an unjust enrichment. The PUC's job is to always make sure that people who are paying get the value of what they are paying for. Additionally, this legislation requires the PUC to provide biennial reports on trends and growth in energy needs from other large users, giving us the data that we need to make informed policy decisions going forward. I had the opportunity to travel to Denmark in 2023 on an educational fact-finding trip to learn about their country's energy technology, resilience, and their efficiency. One of the tours was a green and circular industrial park called Skive Green Lab, where they placed industries in close proximity to varied energy production technologies, to not rely on costly transmission lines to serve the high energy needs of those particular industries. This is innovation. Denmark is a global leader. Let me be clear. I recognize the significant value that data centers bring to Oregon, period. These facilities serve as essential components of our state's digital economy and technological backbone, delivering critical services that our residents and businesses depend on daily. They provide good-paying jobs in our communities and contribute meaningfully on local tax bases. These operations also make considerable investments in electrical infrastructure, paying higher transmission fees and contributing to grid enhancements that ultimately serve broader community needs. It is not our intention to discourage or in any way prevent data center development in Oregon, nor to prevent data centers from securing power. However, we must be forward-thinking and work towards a system that is both fair and equitable for Oregonians and our future. The Power Act ensures that those who create the need for massive infrastructure investments are the ones that pay for them, not Oregon families already struggling with rising energy costs. Colleagues, I urge your support of House Bill 3546B. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Recognize Senator Girard.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise in opposition to the bill, and the reason I'm opposed to the bill is simple. The solution really is the fact that we have a privately owned monopoly. Fact is, we have two of them. One of them is really a bad actor. And until you bring the monopoly under control, you're going to have huge, and I underscore, huge price increases to almost everyone. And what we're doing in this bill is just shifting the price around so that one consumer group is going to pay for another consumer group. The problem is the monopoly, and until we solve the monopoly and get them to act in the public's interest, at least to some degree and not just to the profit margin, then we're still going to have a problem. So I will be a no. If you look at who supports the bill, you can see the monopoly is one of the supporters. They win every time that we have something like this. Every time you put an environmental requirement, they get an asset which they don't have to pay for because they get a write-off, and then they get a guaranteed profit to boot. So they gain on the stock and they gain on the dividend. I mean, where can I sign up to buy such a thing? Thank you.
Any further discussion? Recognize Senator Golden. Senator Golden.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the carrier for bringing forward this bill and talking about some of the intricacies. There are lots to consider in a bill like this, and I just wanted to make a comment on the big picture. I think we are all aware of the growing crisis of utility affordability for our constituents. We are seeing really alarming levels of shutoffs for non-payment. We are seeing double-digit increases in rates again and again. There are a number of different reasons for that. Wildfire is part of it. A way outdated infrastructure for the utilities and their attempts to do something about that are part of it. There are a number of it. But we are now looking, it's started so we can observe what's going on, at the entry on a big scale of these hugely consumptive data farms, one of the, probably the most energy, they've been called the new aluminum plants, but I think they're more consumptive than that. And they are really attracted more and more to Oregon by, more than anything else, by our power rates and the blessing we have of BPA hydropower compared to other states. There's some water availability or regulation issues that make us attractive as well. So we're going to see more and more of them. And as we do, we are going to watch a huge expansion of demand and a very little or much slower expansion of supply. And I'm not an economist, but I remember what that does to prices. So this bill says, when you come to Oregon, welcome, but you need to bring your own power to the table, and there are options to do that. If we don't, this expansion of supply, which statistically is jaw-dropping, is going to be another major pressure point on our constituents and is probably going to make today's double-digit rate increases look modest by comparison. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further discussion. Recognize Senator Robinson.
I opposed this bill in committee. I'm still opposed to it. The main thing that bothers me about this bill is we're picking one class of power user, not large energy users, but specifically it targets Bitcoin mining and things like that, and specifically the data centers. It's a little odd to me. We were trying to incentivize chip manufacturers here not long ago, and this is a big industry that's here, and it's great, and it's nice that they're here. The power prices are rising. A lot of this is state policy on how we make our power. We can have more discussions about that, but when you have a shortage of power, prices go up. And there's a reason that industrial power users buy their power cheaper. It's easier to deliver power on a large scale than a small scale. Now, we had a lot of discussions in committee, and it is claimed, and I'm not sure they're not wrong, that it's possible that the data centers are not paying the proper infrastructure charges when they're installed. Do they require an additional distribution hub? Things like this. And I, like in my usual quest for data, was asking, can you prove that this has been done? Any data? I have not been able to get the data on that. I'm actually a little worried that it is possible that they are not being charged properly, but I don't really know because nobody has provided me with the data, even though some of it has been promised. But when you look at the legislation itself, it does target a specific energy user for a specific rate in a way that I think is wrong. And while I think all of us, nobody wants residential customers to be paying for infrastructure for large companies or anyone else for that matter. They should pay for their infrastructure, not someone else's. This is not the way to do it. So I'm opposed to it for that reason, but with the caveat that we should be making sure, the PUC should be making sure that when you install a large hookup, that all the proper costs are paid. So that's another discussion, but I'm opposed to this version of the bill. Thank you.
Further discussion. Recognize Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise in strong support of House Bill 3546, which aims to hold data centers accountable for covering their own energy costs. This bill requires state regulators to develop policies which help protect Oregon households from bearing the significant costs of powering data centers. By creating a special category for these customers, this bill helps protect everyday users like families and small businesses from paying the costs that big businesses are running up on our tabs. Household budgets are stretched far enough as they are. They shouldn't be covering corporate costs too. Colleagues, I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Recognize Senator Brock Smith.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise in opposition to House Bill 3546B. I do want to apologize to my colleague from the Culture, Commerce, and Chips District for disrupting her carry. I rise in opposition because I think this is not just bad policy. We shouldn't be singling out industries like this. As we know, Oregon is one of the states, the state on the West Coast, where you have a lot of the data cables that come into the state, and so it's ideal for these type of data centers and industry, and singling them out is not good policy or good business. In fact, a better policy, which we discussed in committee, and I rarely have actually opposed legislation that has come out of the Senate Energy and Environment Committee, and appreciate the chair's work there, again, would be to have the opportunity for these industries to contract with the IOUs or investor-owned utilities on any of the necessary infrastructure associated with their development. Putting them at risk, putting them in a special category outside of an industrial user whenever they are a steady stream. The good thing, now it does fluctuate from time to time because they do assist the IOUs when it comes to load on the system, and they're able to scale back some of their electrical uses and wait until the evening times. But for the most part, these are fantastic partners, not only for IOUs, but for the customers that are supported by those IOUs, because they are a constant rate of energy, buying that energy, versus the load that occurs whenever individuals wake up in the morning and turn on their hot water heater and turn on their turn on their coffee pots, or they come home and they turn on their dryer. Colleagues, I appreciate the conversations that we're having here on the floor today talking about protecting ratepayers. I really do. And I hope that that same conversation occurs when we're passing policies in this building that impact those ratepayers negatively, pushed by our environmental for-profit nonprofits in this state. And so I hope that, I would appreciate a no vote, and let's send this back to committee and get it right. But I am opposed to the way that we're going to move this forward. Penalizing one industry that is a good business in Oregon is not the answer. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? Seeing no one else in the queue, Senator Sollman, do you care to close?
Thank you, Mr. President. So a couple of comments that I want to make, that what we are looking at today is nothing new that is across the United States that they're facing. Oregon has an area that is very interesting, very open to, attractive, sorry, as I mentioned, checking all the boxes, right, to our data centers. But there are other data centers that are moving across the United States. So the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission is grappling with this across the United States as well. We also know that when having the Oregon Citizens Utility Board make the comment that there are 3 bills that could make the biggest difference in consumer rates this session. This being one of them. It's making sure that, as we talked about the disparity in the rates, it's making sure that that those that need a larger amount of infrastructure and energy needs pay more into that system for that. Also, the League of Cities, League of Oregon Cities, is a supporter of this bill. And what this boils down to, not only in making sure that we level that playing field in rates, but also it emulates already what our COUs, what they are doing with the ability to protect their ratepayers. So we're asking for what is happening in our COUs territory happens in our IOU territory, in our investor-owned. That's what we're asking for. So that's what this bill is the bottom line for. So while some folks who may be in opposition are in a COU area, this is something they're already experiencing. But for those of us that live in an investor-owned utility area, this is our reality, what we are facing right now and why we need this fix. Ratepayers overwhelmingly are asking us to address these issues that they are facing. This is a piece of the puzzle, and this is an incredibly important piece of the puzzle. So colleagues, I urge your support of House Bill 3546B. Thank you.
Question now arises upon the third reading and final passage of House Bill 3546B. Those who are of the opinion the bill should be passed will answer aye as your name is called. Those opposed, no. Clerk, please call the roll.
Przonski, Reynolds, Robinson, Brock Smith, Sollman, Starr, Taylor, Thatcher, Weber, Anderson, Bonham, Broadman, Campos, Frederick, Gelser-Bluen, Gerard, Golden, Gorsuch, Hayden, Jama, Lieber, Linthicum, Manning, McLean, Meek, Nash, Neron-Mislin, Patterson, Pham, President Wagner.
Aye.
Voting nay, Anderson, Bonham, Gerard, Hayden, Linthicum, McLean, Nash, Robinson, Brock Smith, Starr, Thatcher, Weber, 18 ayes.
House Bill 3546B having received a constitutional majority is declared passed.